Hi everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel and to my first video. My name is Becca Kennedy and I'm an illustrator who draws mostly horror related things, and I'm going to be posting tutorials and my process on how I draw. And today I'm going to show you how to use all of the brushes that I've created. So first off, I use an iPad Pro, it's the 11-inch, and I use an Apple Pencil 2nd generation. I also use the app Procreate, which you can find on the App Store for about $12.99, I think it's at right now. Okay, so when I'm drawing, I usually use an 8 by 10 inch canvas. I just use that because I usually like to make my prints that size when I'm making prints of my drawings. And here are the 11 brushes that I've created that I use in all of my drawings. I've also put them on my Etsy store, which I'll put a link to that in the description. So at the top we have the sketching pencil. This is what I use to sketch out a drawing before I add any color to it. And it works similar to a pencil. It's very thin, and if you push lightly on the pen, it'll show up very light, but if you push down harder, it'll show up more. And if you turn the pencil slightly on its side, you can get a sort of softer appearance rather than a more sharp appearance like that. So that's what I use for sketching, and the next one is the monoline brush. So with this one, the thickness of the line is going to stay the same throughout the line. I don't use this one too often, but if I'm making a shape such as a circle, I think this is good to use because, like I said, the thickness stays the same. So if I'm making a circle, I'll use this and I'll draw a circle, and then if you press and hold, and you can go up here and click circle, and it makes it into a perfect circle. The next one is the one that I probably use the most, and that's the paintbrush. And later on I'm going to be making an in-depth tutorial on my whole painting or drawing process. So here I'll briefly just show you what it does. So similar to the pencil one, if you press lightly with your pencil, it'll show up lightly, and then if you press down harder, it's going to show up darker. So when I'm filling in a big section, I'll usually increase the size, and I'll just press down all the way so that it can fill up the section. But then sometimes I might want to add just a light layer of color, so then I can turn down the opacity and I can make it very light and soft. And you can also use the smudge tool to blend that and make it softer, which is another thing that I do. So if you wanted to add a little bit of color to another color, you can use the paintbrush. And I'll explain more of this later in another video, but you can always turn the opacity down. And sometimes I'll just go over it and layer it like that. And I'll use the smudge tool here in a second as well. The next brush I have is the airbrush. So this one can be very big, so you can use it to fill up a large part of the canvas if you want. And it's just very soft. You can also lower the opacity if you want it to be even softer. I use this a lot for backgrounds of drawings because it can fill up a really large area. The next brush I have here is the smudge brush. So this one I actually use up here with the smudge tool. So I would press this and then press the smudge brush. And I think I'm going to make another video specifically about how I smudge, but I can briefly show you here. So what I like to do is, so I'm using the smudge brush, and I've got two colors here so that I can show you how I do it. So I'll take the smudge brush, and if I'm trying to blend two colors, I'll just either go back and forth, like that just made it a bit softer, so I'm going back and forth, or sometimes I'll go in circular motions. So I'll just kind of move my pen in circles. And you can do it as long as it takes to get it the way that you want it. Sometimes I'll do little taps as well, and I'm kind of not really pressing down hard with my pen. I'm doing it sort of lightly. Another thing I'll do sometimes is I'll press and drag a color. So if I wanted more of the blue to be over here, I would press and drag it. So I'm pressing and flicking. And then I could just blend that out as well. And there's probably other techniques out there, but that's just what I usually do. And like I said, I think I'm going to make a more in-depth video on how I blend while I'm doing a drawing, like an actual drawing. So the next brush is the eyelash brush. And for this one, I'll press and flick in the direction of the eyelash that I'm drawing. So I'm just going to zoom in a little. Okay, so I'll press and flick, kind of in a J motion. When you're drawing eyelashes, you can clump them together sometimes. And it just makes it so that it's thinner at the end, so it gets thinner and thinner as the line goes up. And if I'm drawing bottom lashes, sometimes I'll make them meet up in kind of like a V. So you would start the line at the bottom of the eyelash where the eye is, and then you would go up to the end of the eyelash. So the next brush is the pores brush. You can also use this for any type of skin texture. It's very light, so you can use it a couple different ways. You can either tap, or you can just press down very lightly and just go back and forth. So if I zoom in, you should be able to see it a little bit better. And then you can press down harder if you'd like, and it'll show up even more. And you can also lower the opacity if you need to. And you can change the size of it. So if you wanted to cover a large area, you would make the size very big. And maybe you can make some areas very light, and then maybe some areas are a little bit darker. The next brush is kind of similar. It's the freckles brush. So I like to use this by just tapping my pen once. And I'm doing it kind of lightly right now, but if you wanted them to show up darker, you could just press down even harder. And of course you can change the size if you want them to be a lot smaller. The next one is the hair brush. I'm thinking I might also make a separate video for a hair tutorial, but what I usually would do is I would probably use the paintbrush first to color in a big section of hair. And then I would use the hairbrush to add some more details to it to make it look more realistic. So maybe I'll pick a darker brown, and I can use the hairbrush to just kind of make darker areas inside the hair. So what I'm going to do is I'll pretend that it's darkest at the top and at the bottom, and I'm just kind of pressing and flicking in the direction that I want the hair to be. And then maybe I'll add a lighter brown in the middle. And you don't really have to press down too hard. So I'm just kind of going up and down, and this is if somebody had straight hair, but you could use it for other hairstyles as well. And then if you wanted it to be even softer, you can always use the smudge tool to blend it even more. I also like using the hairbrush for little kind of like strands of hair that come away from the main shape of the hair, and you can make the brush really small if you want. The next brush is the fog brush. So this one has kind of a cloudy sort of appearance, very soft. And just like with some of the others, if you press down harder, it'll show up even more. You can also lower the opacity if you want it to be very, very soft. And when I use this brush, I like to go in circular motions with my pencil because I feel like that works best. And then the last brush is the splatter brush. So with this one, it's just like a stamp brush, so you just tap once and it'll show up. And you can make the brush size even bigger. It could be really big or it could be really small. If you don't want it to be that dark, you can always change the opacity so that it's a little bit lighter. And yeah, those are all of the Procreate brushes that I've created that I use in my drawings. You can find these by going to my Etsy store. I'm going to post a link in the description along with some other important links. And thank you for watching my first YouTube video. I'm definitely going to be posting some more tutorials soon on my drawing process, so I'll see you next time.